Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Workshop. Let me just start by thanking everybody for all the wonderful, nice comments that I received on the house tour. I really do appreciate that. I would like to also just address a couple of issues that came up during the house tour. One about the furnace itself, a little bit about the house, and just a few other little minor details like that. First of all, on the furnace itself, keeping it outside does a couple of things. Number one, it reduces the risk of fire in your house because you're out away from everything. Number two, it keeps the mess out of your house because you don't have to be hauling firewood inside the house. We did have several other alternative sources of heat in the past with wood, and they just weren't very efficient. This is by far much more efficient, believe it or not, even as much wood as it uses. Because we were still using about the same amount of wood in the past, but we were having to drag everything inside the house. It was just a pain in the neck, plus the fire hazard, etc., etc. That's the first part of the furnace. The second part of the furnace is people didn't understand how it actually works, and that is it heats up 400 gallons of hot water at the furnace location outside. So there's 400 gallons of water wrapped around that heat chamber. There's insulated pipes that go down in the ground, and they're in a core pipe about this big, and there's two like 1-inch pipes roughly, and there's foam insulation all around that, and that goes underground. It goes into the house. It goes into those two big Lennox pulse furnaces that you saw. Now those are gas furnaces, but they also have heat exchangers in there for the water. So the water goes into those heat exchangers, heats up those heat exchangers inside those furnaces, and I have a separate thermostat in the house to kick on the blowers, just the blowers, for the wood-fired heat. So that works really, really well. It makes the house toasty. My wife is actually, well, I take it back. To be truthful, she's always freezing. That's just her nature, though. She's always frozen. But she is much warmer with this setup than any other setup we've ever had. Now, we've had pellet stoves, we've had fireplace inserts in there, we've had regular wood stoves in there, and we've had an indoor wood furnace in the garage. We've tried it all. And another bit of trivia that I didn't share with you, and I'm not making this up, I promise you it is 100% true. The previous two different owners that owned the farm both went bankrupt there. The last owner had creditors at the closing collecting their money. I mean, it was that bad. Well, they were heating it with some wood supplemental, but they were heating it with gas. And it just broke them. It would do that with me too, and I guarantee you it would do that with you as well, unless you were independently wealthy. Enough on that. That's how it works though, is that it sends hot water continuously. And by the way, that pump runs continuously. That hot water is circulating all the time, 24/7. It never stops circulating. When the thermostat inside the house calls for more heat, well then it just turns the blowers on. That's all it does. It just turns the blowers on those big furnaces, and the blowers then push the heat out through the house. And it works really, really well. I mean, seriously, it's about as good as it gets. The other part about the house that people don't know is that the attic is completely insulated. The attic is got blown-in insulation in there, and it is like, that deep. It's nice. So it's coated completely in blown-in insulation. But anyway, that's how that all works. The house is as efficient as it will ever be, unless you do something to the floor. The floor is the problem. It's 7,000 square feet of concrete sucking in cold. And, I don't care who you are, you can't fix that unless you put some kind of a thermal break. And I mean, that's another option. I mean, I could tear up all the floors, go around, cut all the concrete, pour insulation in between. I'm not going to do that. I'm too old to mess with that now. I'll just keep cutting firewood as long as I can. The other comment that I got quite a bit was that I shouldn't keep addressing these people that make these negative comments. Well, you got to walk in my shoes or you wouldn't understand the difference. It's not that I have a thin skin. You guys are living with the comments for that moment on that one video, and you're done. And that's it. That's all you ever see of it. I've got over 400 videos out there. I get comments on all 400 videos every day. If I leave something out there untouched, I have to deal with a firestorm of comments for eternity. You just don't understand. It's a different perspective. You got to see my perspective once before you understand what I'm talking about. The perspective is totally different from my side. It's not that I have a thin skin. You know, I can take a negative comment as good as anybody, but I don't like to see hundreds of negative comments coming in every day if I can avoid it. And I think I did it on that video. What it does by addressing that up front is it takes the wind out of their sail. It takes their thunder away. They have nothing they can say because I've already said it, you know. And so that shuts them up, number one. And then number two, if they're still brave enough to make the comment, then you guys, having seen the video, jump on them, and then I don't have to. So it works perfect. So I'm sorry that some of you don't like to see that, but you will probably continue to see that forever in my videos as long as I'm putting videos out, because I don't like to put up with that kind of crap. And therefore, I don't. I wanted to give you an update on the mandolin, that Sam Bush flood survivor mandolin. I think that was video number 342 if you want to look it up. As you will recall in that video, I actually caused a problem. I cracked the top on that mandolin by accident, totally. And I repaired it the best I could, but I did do a lot of improvements on that mandolin, and I did do a lot of work. Well, the customer sent me a very nice note, and he said after he saw the video and after he received the mandolin back, and he loved it so much that he actually sent me the rest of the money for, I gave him a huge discount on it, and he actually said he didn't want a discount. He wanted to pay the full price. So he sent me the rest of the money, which I thought was incredibly wonderful of him. I will also ask you for prayers for him. His daughter, apparently as he wrote this letter to me, was going into the hospital to have a valve replaced in her heart. Wow, that's terrible. But he wanted prayers, and so I'm definitely sending my prayers. I hope you'll do the same. One other comment that I got regarding the farm and the house tour video was that I should hire someone to work on the farm to free me up to work here in the shop. And of course, I've thought of that, and I've considered it. But, there's some practicalities there that are just hard to get past. And one of them is, I live pretty far out, so unless a person lives close by, they're not going to want to run over here to work, especially on a part-time basis. If I hired somebody on a full-time basis, well then this is hard work, and they're definitely going to want a full-time salary. Well, guys, I barely make a full-time salary as it is. So the farm itself doesn't produce any money. It's just what I make here and what I make on YouTube and that sort of thing and I'm making a decent income. I'm not, whining or anything, but I don't make enough income to support myself, the farm, and another full-time employee. So, it's just not a practical solution. I wish it was, because I'd do that. So, what are you about to see now? In an effort just to get videos out for you, I'm having to maybe try some different things. This is a repair job on a Gibson guitar, and I think you'll be amazed at the extent of trouble I have to go to. So, I'll just foreshadow it by telling you that some very reputable people have worked on this guitar in the past, and I'm not knocking what they did. I'm really, truly am not. I never do that. I don't say, well, you should have done this or you should have done... I don't do that. I just, in this particular case, I truly don't think they addressed the real problem, is what the real problem is. What the work they did on it was perfect. It was fine. I couldn't have done any better. But I don't think they actually fixed the real problem. I think they thought they did, but I really feel like I hit on the real problem here, and so I want to keep you in suspense so that you'll see what the real problem is. And all I can say is, shame on you, Gibson. Just shame on you. And then after that clip, I'm going to throw in a little clip at the end of showing you how I fixed a cabinet here in the shop that just kept giving me trouble. I kept putting these little sticky things in there to set the... just a pain in the neck. I won't even go into it. You'll see what I'm talking about. But anyway, I finally fixed this cabinet where it doesn't give me any more trouble. And you may need to do that to one of your cabinets if you're having the same kind of problem. So I thought I'd just throw that in there as some little bonus footage. Now, by the way, on the guitar repair, it's only going to be part 1 this time because I just don't have time to get it finished. And for those of you who are waiting for the video on the next installment of the guitar I'm building, I'm sorry, I just haven't had time to work on it. I mean, you see kind of what keeps me busy around here, and I just haven't had time to work on it. But I will get back to it as soon as I can. Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. Hey, I'm sporting my new t-shirt my wife brought back from Italy. I don't know if that's going to show up very well. It's kind of hard to read even in good light, let alone like this. But anyway, it's about the guy who I have a lot of interest in and respect for, and that would be Leonardo Da Vinci. I think that guy was a little bit ahead of his time. Can you imagine if you had a guy like that now could see the modern world? Oh my gosh, wouldn't it just blow his mind? Even as smart as he was. I mean, just take your smartphone for instance. What would they think about that? I mean, it's just incredible. Or those poor pioneers going across the U.S. In the covered wagons. If you could just show them that this will take you right there. Just take your smartphone and say, drive to, so-and-so California, and it'll take you right there. Could they have even imagined anything like that? It just boggles my mind. I don't know about you, but it really does when I try to think back like that. Well, that's not why we're here, though. We're here to talk about a new project. We've got a Gibson guitar. I haven't even looked to see what model it is yet. Let me see if I can see a model number in it. Does he tell me on his paper? No, he doesn't. Well, I don't even see a model number. I do see a serial number. So the actual number is 528, I believe, 348. So anyway, there you go. There's the Gibson peg head. There's the fretboard. There's the body style. I just don't know specifically which body or which guitar this is. J something, I imagine, but it really doesn't matter to me. What it's in here for is a setup, basically, and to make it play well. Now, the one unique thing about this, I don't know if it's going to show up, but those bottom 3 strings on this are actually nylon, which you don't see that very often on a steel string style guitar. Those strings actually sound pretty good. They don't sound bad at all, but the top strings don't play at all. You can hear the buzzing. They are set way too low here at the nut, and you can't even press them down. They are actually sitting on the first fret. So obviously we've got our work cut out for us on the setup. More than likely a new nut is going to have to happen, and I would say more than likely because I'm pretty positive it's going to have to happen. The other thing about this is his comment says that the saddle is lifting, but I think what he means is the bridge. There is some slight, you can go under here a little bit. Not terribly bad. If I draw a line under here. Now, who would think a pencil wouldn't actually write? But it didn't. That's that Rosa luck thing. It's just crazy how that happens with me. I don't know how that happens. That time it did, and you can maybe see how far under there that it's, that's going. It's roughly a 1/4 inch, but it's just in these corners right here, and that's the only place I see it. It sort of goes under there a little bit in other places, but very little. So this is one of those deals where I don't know if I should go to the extreme of taking that off of there just for that little bit. I don't think it's really coming off all that much. There's a history on this guitar, apparently. The customer said that Len Dudenbostel had worked on it, replaced the saddle about 10 years ago. After he put in the frets, he had Marty Lanham, it looks like, from Nashole Guitars, put in the saddle, which that doesn't make sense because but anyway, originally had a bolt through saddle. I guess he's talking about the bridge, not the saddle again. He's calling the bridge the saddle, I think, because of the bolt through. And this has been replaced apparently. He said it actually cost him more for this than it did to buy the whole guitar originally. So he goes on to make a comment that apparently they quoted him a much lower price and he ended up paying. That won't happen with me. It just won't happen. Oftentimes I'll actually reduce the price to make it make sense, because I don't believe in overcharging, and I certainly don't charge more than I tell someone I'm going to charge. But yeah, this is definitely messed up here. I don't know how that all happened. He wants new strings on it and he wants it set up, and he's provided elixir strings, and I've already checked and they're not nylon. So, you know, it's just a complicated set of circumstances that I'm trying to wade through here. But really, when you boil it down, it's just a decision about whether I want to do anything about this, and then just getting the normal setup on the frets and the nut. And of course the saddle itself. Look at that and see how that's made and everything. You know, I don't really mind taking the bridge off of an instrument if it needs to come off, but I don't like to take them off if they don't need to come off. The one thing I'm sort of noticing is there's a fairly good hump around this, which, you know, that's fairly common. I'm trying to see if you can see some of the hump there. Don't know if you can or not, really. It's really hard to tell in the video how well that's coming across. Anyway, there's a pretty good hump there. So I want to look inside this thing and see if anything's loose. We'll do that first. I got the trusty light here. This is by far the easiest way to look in there. I put new batteries in it so it's nice and bright. It may not be the easiest way for you to see what I'm doing, but it really is even better than the camera in most circumstances. The camera is good and better in some circumstances, but for just general looking around, you can't hardly beat the mirror. Of course, I need to take the strings off this, but I wanted to look while it was under tension, actually, because I wanted to see if anything was bowed up. It would be easier if the strings weren't on it, but then you don't always see all the separations that you might see this way. I will say that this bracing in this guitar is very dainty compared to a lot of them that I see. This is small bracing, very small bracing in fact. Maybe the smallest I've ever seen in a Gibson. Though the bridge pad is bigger than some I've seen, I have seen smaller bridge pads, but that bridge pad is not overly big either. I can see a pickup going in there. So they've got an under saddle pickup there, apparently. I don't see anything obviously wrong inside on the top. All the braces look completely tight. I would say the bulge is just simply due to the very light bracing that it has. It really does have tiny bracing. I'm not just saying that. This is some of the smallest bracing I've ever seen in a, dreadnought style, if you will, flat top guitar. Yeah, there's just a lot that looks weird here to me. This looks bad to me. The back of this bridge is higher than the front of this bridge. Maybe that'll show up. You know, it's really tilted forward a lot. Part of that is the belly. I hate to take the darn bridge off if it doesn't need it, because you just are really creating more problems than you're fixing. The neck angle looks reasonably good to me. I've sighted down the neck before I even turned the camera on, and it looks fairly good in terms of, height. It doesn't look like we need a neck reset or anything like that. Well, friends, due to miscellaneous and sundry things, it's 3 weeks later now. Just haven't had time to look at the guitar. But it did give me a lot of time to ponder on the guitar about what I should do and how I should go about it, and I pretty much in that time frame made up my mind that I am going to take the bridge off. Mostly because, you know, he sent it this far, shipping's expensive and so forth, and I don't want to have to take a chance on having to have him ship it back again. You know, I really think that I could probably glue around these edges, clamp it down, and it would probably be fine. But then again, I don't know if someone else has already tried that. You know, there's just a myriad of factors, and I may discover something when I take the bridge off that's causing the problem. Who knows? Be that as it may, I've decided I am going to take the bridge off. So, but before I do that, because someone actually made this bridge and, you know, set the intonation and all that, I want to test it and see what they did. It might be that I want to reuse this bridge, or it might be that I just want to make a new bridge entirely and start from scratch. So here we go. So the first thing I've done here is, as you recall, this string was so low I couldn't even play it without it buzzing. So I put 4 pieces of paper under this string in an effort to raise it up. And I'm now going to tune it up to pitch. I know you can't really see the tuner there, but it does look like it's pretty close. Yeah, I think it's close enough. So I think I'm just going to take this off, clean the area really good, put it right back on, and see what happens. I'm not crazy about the fit of this saddle. I've seen far worse. It's not horrible, but it is loose. If you turn the guitar over, it would fall out. I'm 99% sure. Yes, it just fell right out, as you can see. That's kind of a good test. If your saddle falls out, it's not tight enough. I don't mean that they should be forced into place. You know, you don't want to have them where they're just have to hammer them into place. That's not what you want. But you want to be able to put them in place, little firm pressure, push them into place, and get them to stay. Whenever they're loose like that and they flop a little bit, it's likely to break your bridge right through here because it keeps pulling forward and you know, it acts like a lever. I see a suspicious line right here on this one. I'm not sure it's cracked, but that sure is suspicious looking real close there. If you look, maybe it'll focus and you can see the line I'm talking about there on this end of the bridge. Now that could just be something else, could just be the grain of the wood, but when I take this off of there, I'll be watching to see if that opens up, because that is not a good thing if that's the case. Now, I do see one more thing that I don't like at all, and that is a shim under here. And this shim, well, actually, I take it back. This is not a shim. This is actually a pickup. I'm glad I pulled that up before we started taking the bridge off. I haven't seen this pickup before either, I don't think. It's a very soft pickup. I'm used to the one that's a lot stiffer. This one's kind of flexible. So I'm not familiar with this particular brand, so I'm glad we took that out before we start taking this bridge off, because that would have probably gotten damaged. I've got my fancy homemade bridge removal tool set up on here. I put a non-skid pad that one of my wonderful viewers gave me, these non-skid pads. Put that up there and set this on top so that you can see the controls. I'll turn it on and you can watch it heat up, and then my actual heater is right here, and we'll put that on the bridge and let it start warming up. I'll just speed the video up here so that you can see it happen. Just so you know, we're headed to 380 degrees. That's the thermostat. It's only at 130 degrees right now, and that's Fahrenheit, of course. Well, I just went in the other room and cut this pool noodle, and in that length of time, it's already up to 326, 7. So it's going very quickly, as you can see. Well, you can see we're up to temperature. Actually, it's a little hotter than the temperature. And you can see the moisture coming out of that bridge. Look at the moisture coming out of that. That is crazy. Wow. Never actually seen that before. It must be, it looks like it's the dye something they used. Never seen that before. I cut this pool noodle, and I think that that's going to be my perfect little tool for holding this handle up. I cut a little flat spot on the bottom of it there, and then that will keep it from tipping over. It pretty much sits there on its own anyway, but if, you know, this way I don't have to worry. And I think that hole might slide over this handle where I can store it on the handle when I'm not using it. That's getting pretty darn hot. I think you can see the temperature's now dropped back to 373. It fluctuates there till it finds its happy spot, and then it generally keeps it pretty darn close to you, whatever your setting is. We're gonna just let it heat up a little bit more. I really like the fact that this is small enough that it doesn't heat up the surrounding part of the guitar. You know, I used to use just a plain old iron and have to put things under here to keep it from heating it up. But this is much safer and does a really good job. It puts the heat right where you want it instead of in other places. I can also turn it up in ways like this and get to the ends of the bridge, which is really nice. I'm going to back the camera up a little bit because it's a little bit in my way. And after all, I know you want to see, but I think it's more important that I have ability to work. Heating up knife up really helps it cut the glue under the bridge much better. Now I can take this off and set it on my Formica table where it won't do any damage. And I should be able to get under there, and you can see it's going under there pretty easily. I like to clean the glue off the knife. Taking while it's heating up like this, you can take and push a little stick of crust. You can get all that sticky glue off of there. Yeah, my bridge removal tool here, my heater, has changed everything. It just makes it so much easier. I used to fight these things, and now it seems almost simple. You can see it coming up there. You got to be a little bit careful because you don't want to do a tear out in the front here. So I'm just going across the front there, just double checking it. Came out about as clean as they can come out. Now it did have a little wood tear out over here. I'm not exactly sure why that happened, but we should be able to glue that back in place too, really. They did fill the holes. That's really hot, by the way. That's why I keep moving it around. I'm not crazy about this bridge in that it's kind of dished a little bit. It's kind of, under dished there. I don't know if that shows up on camera or not, but it's not perfectly flat. It's a little bit bowed from being pulled on. Tell you another little thing I've kind of discovered, as hot as that little iron is for removing that bridge, and it's very hot. It will burn you in a heartbeat now. I've learned to just take and set the whole contraption out of the way and set the iron down on the concrete floor. That makes that iron cool off much faster. And so it's just a good way, and it's a safe way that, it's not going to catch anything on fire, and you can just let it cool off that way really fast. There is still a little bit of a hump there. There is still a little bit of a pull up like that, and I don't like that. I really don't. That's the reason why a lot of neck resets are done, is because this is pulled up like this. This guitar, I got to tell you, it's on the edge of a neck reset, if you will. But it's mostly, I think, because of this. Because when you look down the plane, this disappears just about like it should. It's just about the right angle. It really is. But this hump right here, which doesn't show up that good, and it's not the worst hump I've ever seen. I guess what I don't like about this hump is that it's in a very short distance. It's not like a real big hump that goes everywhere. It's like it starts right here and it ends right at the back of the bridge. I mean, it's just a little weird hump that's just pulled up like that. So you ask, why would it do that? Well, I mean, I've seen it before. This one, I wouldn't even say this is excessive. It's just real noticeable. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I say it's because of the bracing inside, which is very delicate, and possibly the small bridge plate. So let's turn it around and let's look closer at the bridge plate and see if we can tell much about that. I've been known to beef up the bridge plates when necessary, and you know, I'm a firm believer that your bridge plate is a good thing. You know, it doesn't seem to kill your sound that much when you make a little bit bigger bridge plate, a little bit stronger bridge plate. Well, actually, this bridge plate is not tiny. It's not near as small as I was expecting. I'll tell you why I don't like this bridge plate though. It's plywood. Now, if you want to find something that'll kill your sound, in my opinion, the bridge plate is the perfect size. It's just the wrong material. It's maple plywood. Why would you do that, Gibson? Why would you do that? Plywood is strong on its edge. You know, they put it on the corners of houses especially. Now they put it on pretty much all, wafer board pretty much all over the whole house. It keeps the house from racking because that edge is very strong. You can't, you know, like the sheet of plywood standing up like this on the corner, it just keeps the house from racking. It's very, very strong. It's very strong that way. It's not so strong when you walk on it flat. And that's what we're doing here, in effect, is we've got all the weight in the middle of that piece of plywood. That is not a good thing at all. I don't like that a bit. And it don't help the sound any. When you put a plywood piece right where your sound is, you kind of negated all the wonderful solid wood top you have. And I'm assuming it's a solid, yes, it's a solid wood top. It just don't make no sense at all. I mean, I don't know, cost cutting, I'm sure. But, you know, now I'm thinking if I can get that plate out of there, this guitar will sound better. It'll be stronger. You know, like everything about it will be better if I can get that out of there. I really didn't realize it was plywood before, but I can see it clearly. It's plywood. I don't know if I can show that to you guys or not. Oh, it's absolutely, for sure, 100% plywood. I mean, I'm not guessing. Can you see this edge of the plywood going across this way? If you can see that edge, I'll try to come up closer maybe. That edge has got a distinct white, dark white line. So it's a 3-ply plywood. Again, I don't know if you can see that or not in the camera. We'll see. I'll see later when I edit the video. But for sure it's plywood. So for sure, if I can get it out, it's coming out. Taking bridge plates out ain't easy at all. It's like one of the hardest things you'll ever try to do when you work on a guitar is take a bridge plate out. That's assuming the bridge plate is in there solid. And this one appears to be in there solid. I'm gonna reach in there with my hand. Wow, it's a thick bridge plate too. And I guess being plywood it would be, you know. I wouldn't say, it's not a 1/4 inch thick, but it's, gosh, it's probably close to, well, it's probably just a fat eighth, between an 1/8 and 3/16. That's probably what it, I mean, that's what I'm feeling here. And I would say it's every bit of an 1/8, which is heavy. 100 thousandths is about what I like to see. And an 1/8 is 125 thousandths. So it's about 25 thousandths at least too thick, if not thicker than that. That's another thing that's killing your sound. It's, the whole thing ain't good. Here's a piece of foam where they've stuck the pickup on there. Boy, golly guys, I think this has to come out. I'm gonna give it a try. Got my little Trusty Stumac deal here, and of course they don't sponsor me. I bought this. But I'm going to get in there and see if I can get behind that and see if it feels like it wants to cut out of there. I'm 99% sure, at least in my mind, that the reason this has that screwed up hump is because of that plywood turned up flat. Plywood just is not strong that way. It's just not strong that way. Solid wood would actually be stronger that way than plywood is. Plywood, it just is not strong that way. If you've ever walked on plywood, you know what I'm talking about. Now, if you got supports under it, it's pretty stout. You know, they make plywood floors, obviously, but you got joists every 16 inches, and you're using pretty darn thick plywood. Usually thicker than 3/4 of an inch for a floor. But this is, I can feel it kind of giving. I think maybe I might be able to get it out, maybe. I think I'm going to put my heater back on it. Because I can actually feel it giving, I think my heater might soften that up enough that we can pull it out of there. Boy, am I glad I made that heater. Got the heater back on it. The heater's already up to 230 degrees. It's sitting back here. You can't see it, but... And I really feel like we'll be able to flatten this area out now, get it perfectly flat. Therefore, the neck angle will be just about perfect. And we can make a whole new bridge, which I don't like this bridge anyway. They've cut it down incredibly thin, which is another part of the problem. So, I mean, it's just a... Don't hear me say they did anything wrong. I think they did a nice job on this, but they worked with it as it is, and I'm not willing to work with it as it is. I guess you could say we're going to do some structure changing. It needs it. You know, if I could just let well enough be good enough sometimes, you know, my life would sure be a lot easier. I just can't do it. I see something wrong and I gotta go after it. As hot as that is now, let me reach in there and see if it's giving at all. Those two wooden dowels that they have in there probably isn't helping me any either. I can get my finger under it now. Yeah, that's really working. I'm going to leave my tool up under there and heat it again. Maybe that'll help it come loose. On this end of the plate, I've probably got it that far from the top. I mean, it's coming loose like that. But as I move over this way, it's harder to get to it because of the bracing. One way or the other, that baby's coming out of there. I don't like plywood on my guitar sound area. I might drill these pegs out. I don't know if they're causing me trouble or not. They might be. These pegs are very large. Actually, believe it or not, this bit is as large as it is still smaller than the pegs. There, we got it. Yeah, we got both of them drilled out now. At least that will weaken them enough, I think, that they'll break out of the way now. They won't cause too much problem as I'm trying to get this out of there. It's crazy. That thing's going back under there really far, and yet I can't get it to go any further on that one end. But this end is stuck, wouldn't you know? And this end's the hard end to get to because of the bracing. I wish I had something small and metal flat right here where I could really concentrate the heat right there. I may have to make something. Trying to work fast, I pulled out my piece of aluminum that I used to drive frets in with, and I don't think it's going to hurt that I notched out a little spot there that kind of matches the shape of this. I can set this in there now, set the heater right on top of it, and only be heating the area I want to heat. Decided to heat up the tool also, so I have it sitting on the block there heating up. Got to be a little careful with that because it could burn myself on the inside of the guitar. It's very, very, very tight still. I noticed there's one spot where they've got some cloth on the original bracing that goes over the corner of this. I don't think it's enough to make much difference, but I'm going to try to get in there and cut that if I can. I'm going to change tactics a little bit. I'm going to heat this knife up and go in there and see if I can get it back up in there a little further. Don't know if I can or not. I'm also heating the other one up in case this idea doesn't work. You know, where that bracing goes across, I cannot get this in there and turn it. You know, I can only get it in like this at an angle. If I could get it in straight where I could pull straight, I think I could get it out of there. But because that bracing is in the way, it's very difficult to get this end of the bridge pad loose. I see another problem. I think they've filled these peg holes in too. I didn't see that before. That may be my problem. They've actually filled these peg holes in. I didn't know that. There you go. That looks like that was drilled with a little smaller drill, but I think a 1/4 inch is about the size that they were drilled. Yep, that might help right there. I didn't realize that those had been filled. That may be my biggest problem down through here. I can't get it broke loose from that. Yeah, they definitely had filled them. I did not know that. Actually, they filled them with something a little bit bigger than that. There's still dowel left down in there. This is the problem you get into when someone else has already worked on something. You don't know what they've done. And they definitely had filled the holes. If I can get that stuff out of there, that might let that bridge plate come on loose because, you know, it's glued to those dowels. There we go. That's helping. Yeah, it's popping out of there once I get it. There's a piece of the dowel that was going down through there right there. I've got the knife worked all the way under here. When I heat this up now, it'll heat up that knife as well, and I think I'll be able to move it on through the glue. I'm hoping I can anyway. Gibson, I'm not real happy with you for putting a plywood bridge plate in there. I'm sure it was done on thousands and thousands of guitars, but wasn't a good idea. Not a good idea at all. And I'll bet you somebody even got a bonus for that. We could save, you know, 20 cents per guitar by doing this, you know. He probably got a bonus in his pay. I would rather give him a punch in the nose. Oh well. There's a little trick for you. I had that knife in there and I actually pulled the knife through with this. I couldn't do it by hand, but this actually pulled the knife through the glue, and we've really made progress there now. We're way over here now with the knife. So now we're headed the right direction now. It's coming out of there now, I can tell you for sure. There we go. See, it came out pretty clean too. But look how bowed that is. Look how bowed that is. It's dished from one side to the other. See, it doesn't show up very well, but there's a bow under here. If you could actually slide that X-Acto blade under there, see how it goes under there? Plywood is not very strong that way, and you can see for sure it is clearly plywood. And it's very thick, you know, it's overly thick, so that killed the sound too. I would rather have, and it's a good size, the size of it is perfect. I like the size of it, but I don't like the thickness. All right, the thickness is 100 and almost 70 thousandths. That's way thick. That's 70 thousandths thicker than I would like to see it. And for my millimeter friends, let's see here, what is it? In millimeters, it's 4.2 or a little bit more, 4.25 roughly millimeters. So that's really thick. Should be a little bit, about 2.5 millimeters would be good. This is just a typical cost-cutting measure. That's all this is. Now I have to repair the damage and put it back together, and to be perfectly honest with you, I burnt it right there. The tool slipped and I didn't see it, and it burnt it right there. So, you know, stuff happens. I hate that. I wish it wouldn't have happened, but it did. So I'm just going to have to figure out a way to try to clean that up too. And to be perfectly truthful, it did kind of crack the seam right here a little bit. I don't think that's anything of any consequence. You know, it's in this big scheme of things, this thing's going to be far better off after I repair it than it was like this. Especially with this warp in here. Now we'll be able to flatten this back out, get a good decent bridge on there. Yeah, he's going to have to pay a little bit more, but he'll have a really good sounding guitar now instead of this crap. Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. And I'm fixing to go all Matthias Wandel on that cabinet. It's just one of those little cheap cabinets you buy at a box store that has been very handy. It's got a few shelves in it, and I keep a lot of just miscellaneous junk in there that I use here in the shop. You can see this is the tool wall over here, and here's my work table right down here. So I'll give you an idea where we're at. This is right next to my work table in the main office of my shop. And it didn't have enough shelves in there, so I kind of already went Matthias Wandel on it and added a shelf myself. And you can see there, that's the shelf I added. I added it, you know, the shelf is the same size as these other shelves. But it also uses those plastic little clips. And we'll show you what that looks like. Here's the plastic clip. That's what the shelf sits on. Well, they keep falling out, probably mainly because I have so much weight on it with all those papers there, with all the printing paper. And that stuff is very heavy, obviously. But I've even glued those little plastic things in the holes and everything, and they still keep falling out. So, as I said, I'm going Matthias Wandel on this. I'm going to fix it where that don't happen anymore. I'm surprised these other shelves haven't fallen. And, you know, the fact that I'm even drawing attention to it almost guarantees they will start falling. I shouldn't have even said anything. Oh well, here we go. We're going to clean all the mess out first. And this paper is very heavy, actually. And there's my stash of carbon paper. You can see I probably have enough carbon paper to last the rest of my life. The shelf itself should come out. It comes out no problem. It's just a piece of cheap wafer board. It hasn't bowed any. It's pretty flat, so it's not really, that's not the problem. It isn't bowing out of the problem. The way I'm going to fix this is I'm going to put a permanent board across there and across here, and maybe even one across the back, although I doubt I'll put it on the back. The back's a real thin piece of junk anyway. And then I'll just set the shelf on that. Ordinarily I would make those supports out of regular wood, but I've got so much scrap plywood, I'm just going to use 3/4 inch plywood. The shelf won't know the difference. And I've got this set for 1.5 inches, and we're going to run it through. So we'll turn on the vacuum first. And turn on the saw. And yes, there's no guards on that saw. It keeps me more aware. So we're at the cutoff saw. I've got these stacked here, and I've got them set for 16 inches. And now we're going to drill some holes. I'll just put 3 in each board, I think. That ought to get us by. Now I'll look for some appropriate length screws. I'm ready to put these in. I'm going to use my trusty tight bond to just put a little bit of glue on these, just a little bit. That'll just ensure that it's not going to come loose. Now I could go all OCD on trying to level this up and everything, but the easy way to level it is just use the holes that are across there. So I'm just lining the cleat up with the bottom of the holes. I've checked the door, seems to clear it fine. It's real close. I could cut it off a little bit more, probably wouldn't hurt anything, but it doesn't seem to interfere, so I'll just leave it there. That seems pretty darn solid. I don't think the shelf's gonna fall off of there this time. Now we'll do the same thing on this side. Well, that ought to hold it. Doggone it anyway. I'm tired of that breaking loose, coming loose. So that ought to fix that problem. I am so tired of that thing coming loose. I don't think it's going to happen anymore. So there you go. There's the new shelf, and I think that's going to hold up just fine. It'll hold until it breaks.